I'm delighted to welcome to our stand at the Payment Choice Alliance stand at the Conservative Party Conference, John Howells, who's the Chief Executive of the LINK ATM Network. John, nice to meet you again.
Thank you for having me here, Payment Choice Alliance.
So how many years have you been at LINK for now, John?
I've been here 10 years, and in that
10
time,
years.
cash usage is still vital, but it's dropped from 6 out of 10 transactions when I first started. We're probably down to 1 out of 10 transactions, but it's still vital for millions of people in this country.
Sure, and actually when I look at the LINK figures, I noticed that the actual value of cash taken from the ATMs is still quite high. I see it's 70% of the level it was before the pandemic.
Exactly, so you often hear that cash is dying. I mean, it's definitely reducing, but everybody uses cash.
Yeah.
Cash in circulation, so the amount which is out there in people's pockets, pretty much the same as pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
The problem is it's dropping in terms of being used for transactions, so we need to protect the infrastructure, the ATMs, bank branches, stuff like that, to make sure people can use it, because cash is still vital.
Yeah, when talking about that protection, we've had a lot of publicity for bank hubs, but I'm a bit mystified about bank hubs because I wrote to the FCA recently and asked for a specification on bank hubs, and they wrote back to me and actually told me, have a look at the LINK website. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to find a specification for bank hubs on the LINK website. So do you think the FCA are possibly, still catching up a bit on what's happening?
I think the bank hubs, we've got, I think, 7 open and up and running across the country.
Not many.
They're very popular. But I agree, we need more. We've got 200 odd communities who need some sort of shared infrastructure where LINK has said, yes, something must go in.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see the rate of those bank hub openings dramatically increase.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd like to see bank hubs open before the last branch in town
Absolutely,
closes, because that way consumers and small businesses aren't disadvantaged.
Yeah. And that's not happening at the moment, is it?
It's too slow. It needs speeding up. When you asked about the FCA, I think the FCA is a powerful and good regulator, really focused on this. We've got this new law which has come in, the Financial Services and Markets Act, and I'm hoping that will now give the FCA the tools it needs to work with LINK and the banks to get these bank hubs open quick and where they're needed.
I was a bit disappointed because I asked the FCA when they would start implementing the policy statement, and they said they expected to reach agreement with the interested parties like the banks by next summer. And I thought, well, the next statement from the Treasury is going to be next summer. So I think we do need to speed this up. I'm echoing what you're saying. We need to get more bank hubs installed and quickly, and we just need the whole process to quicken, don't we, really?
I think we're just in time with this legislation. If it had slipped another couple of years, we'd have found that ATMs and branches had closed, and once they're gone, it's almost impossible to get things back in place. That's why we need the bank hubs open before the last branch closed, and we need to protect ATMs. We should never have a high street which doesn't have an ATM or a post office account.
And I think we do need to look at the volume of cash in the community as well as simply the number of ATMs, because obviously one ATM may not be enough in the community. We may need more than one.
You've got to be able to access. A high street needs cash. We're still not cashless. We're nowhere near ready to go cashless. We've got to have access to cash.
What you're saying, when we did a survey through YouGov, they said that they found that 90%, more than 90% of people still use cash. Occasionally, that might be once every few months or frequently. I think it was over 40% use cash frequently. But the other telling thing that we found in that survey was 41% of people said they strongly wanted a Payment Choice Act, and another 30% said that they tended to agree with that. So we're calling that 71% who favour a Payment Choice Act. Well, that equates to 40 million people in the electorate. I mean, do you think there should be a problem having a Payments Choice Act? Do you think it's the right thing to do in this country?
I'm not a politician, but I do know we need to have access to cash for many, many years
and
to
the right
come.
to accept cash.
And we need to make sure that that is done in a way which is going to guarantee it for the population.
Yeah.
It's too difficult to just expect industry to sort it out. So we need the legislation. FCA is a good regulator to sit on top of it.
Yeah.
And I think we're just in time with what's coming through.
And in terms of the future, obviously many countries in Europe now have utilities running their cash networks. The first one was in Finland, then Sweden, more recently Geldmat in Holland, and now I think there's one in Belgium too. But those utilities are really seeing a dramatic decline in ATM numbers, far more of a decline than we've seen in the LINK network. I mean, in Holland it's staggering. We've gone from 6,000 ATMs in 2018 to less than 900 locations now. I mean, surely there's a utility that could be created that would actually look after ATM networks better? Should we have a utility here in the UK? Could Link be a utility?
I think there's a lot of merit in that. So ATMs in this country now typically are run by a handful of professionals, companies like Note Machine, companies like Cardtronics, who are running tens of thousands of ATMs, not the banks, but those organisations. So that we're almost at that kind of utility stage. I think it's a good next stage. And for branches too, because it's too expensive to expect 5, 6, 7 different banks all to be doing their own thing. So they should club together, and we should have some utility structure to take us through the next 10, 20 years.
And in the meantime, obviously, a big issue for ATM operators is the link interchange. Going forward, I mean, that's going to have to go up, isn't it?
My job is to make sure we've got coverage and that every consumer can access free access to cash. And at the moment, I'm happy that's what's there. Of course, I know some organisations would like to get more money or pay less money, but I'm focused on, can the consumer get free access to cash? So long as that's happening, then Link is completely content, but we need to get that balance right.
And I think I'm right in saying, though, in those communities where Link have a appeal from the community and Link say there has to be an ATM, I mean, you actually sometimes pay quite high fees in those communities to get an ATM in, don't you?
Absolutely. So it's a complete guarantee. If you've got a high street, it needs to have free access to cash. If you haven't got a free ATM or a post office counter there, then we will pay whatever it takes to get free access to cash, because every high street needs free access to cash.
So one last question, John. I'm going to turn you into Mystic Meg for a moment, if I may. We've now got about 39,000 free ATMs in this country. It's gone down quite dramatically in the last few years. What do you see as the number that we'll arrive at, that everybody will agree? When I say everybody will agree, I'm assuming the banking community as well, is the number that we need. Now, bear in mind, we had 25,000 ATMs in 1998. It got up to 54,000 at its peak a few years ago, now down to 39. Where do you see it bottoming out?
Well, our forecast is for somewhere between 15 and 20 in 10 years' time, 15 and 20,000. But the key thing is that they're not all clustered in city centres. We need to have them spread out across the country. You can't have all the little villages stripped of their free ATMs and have everything concentrated in Manchester, where we are at the moment, for example. So it may drop to 20,000 free ATMs. We need to keep that spread, that footprint, so that the entire country can get free access to cash.
And you see those 15, 20,000 being run by a variety of organisations, or will that be when we have a utility?
I think we're already moving to the position where we've got 2 or 3 very big professional organisations, and I mentioned 2 of them earlier, Note Machine and Cardtronics. I think that will continue, and I don't think there's a bad thing there. As we move into a consolidation phase, then professional organisations who really know how to run large networks efficiently, good for the customer, but cheap for the banks. That's what we want, and that's what those organisations can do.
John, thanks for being Mystic Meg. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.